Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you're calling in from. It's good to be here with you all today. My name's Leela Oakley, and I am excited to spend the next hour with you talking about our immigration justice program. Before we get started, if you'd like to, you can use this QR code to submit any questions you might have. You can also put that code in the chat, and we'll be sure to get to your questions throughout our presentation today. You can let us know what questions you might have or what resources you're looking for. Again, you're more than welcome to use the chat feature as well. Over the next hour, we're going to spend some time together learning about this program. I'm joined today by Reverend Kristen Dollar, my colleague and the program director. Kristen will be sharing about the program content. I'll give you a little insight into how you can utilize um, our programs in your community, how to get started, and just some kind of nuts and bolts and details. And then we'll also have some time to sample a portion of a session. So we're going to just do a part of a quick activity, and you'll get to experience two prayers, both an opening and closing prayer, to give you a bit of a taste of the program. Before we jump into the opening prayer, though, I would love to know who's on the call. So if you are in a place where you can um, join the chat, go on down to the chat and let me know who you are. Say where you're calling in from. So your name, your city, and say hi down there. I'm sure folks would want to see who's on the call. Again, I'm Leela Oakley, for those of you who just joined, and I am based out of Richmond, Virginia, and I'm glad to be here with you all today. Wonderful. I'm seeing a lot of folks coming in. Well, welcome everybody. We've got folks from all across the country, which I love about the calls, is we get to meet and chat with people from all over. So I will hand it off to you, Kristen, to begin sharing with folks about Just Faith in our programs.
Great. Yeah, and welcome again, everyone. So great to see you all. I'm just curious how many of you all are brand new to us at Just Faith Ministries. And if you're new, you can, it'd be great since some folks have their cameras off, if you can just type the word I'm new, or just write new in the chat so we can give you an extra welcome. Welcome, Janet. Welcome, Steve. Great. Well, if you are new to us, I just want to share a quick little summary of who we are and what we do. Here at Just Faith Ministries, we create small group programs that ordinary folks can facilitate in their communities. They can either be in-person communities in a church or in homes, or they can be virtual communities on platforms like this one on Zoom. Our communities guide groups, small groups, in creating brave spaces of community and trust where participants can really take some time and create a space in their lives to dig deeply into their faith and ask challenging questions together about some of the most important social issues of our time. And really, the goal is for participants to exit our programs prepared to address root causes of injustice, both in their local communities and beyond that as well. And so we offer programs on a wide variety of topics, including racial justice, creation care, civil dialogue, Indigenous justice, poverty, preventing gun violence. We also have some seasonal programs for Advent and Lent. But today we're here to discuss our program, Faith and Immigration Justice. And so before our opening prayer, I'd just like you to invite you to take a deep breath and call to mind the reason why you took time out of your day to be here with us. Maybe it's because of a story about immigration that you heard on the news recently that was maybe kind of scary. Maybe there's someone who you love who is an immigrant. Maybe it's because you yourself are an immigrant. And let's just take a moment of silence to honor the people and the stories that bring us here today. And so we pause now to hold in our hearts those who are directly affected by our current immigration crisis. We remember those who are trapped in unsafe conditions, who must flee their homes to find food, to find clean water, to find safety, to find shelter. We remember those who are crossing deserts and oceans, risking their lives for a better future for themselves and for their families. We remember those in immigration detention centers or who are undergoing deportation proceedings right now, often in a language they don't understand, often without legal counsel. And we remember those who are living in fear, who draw the blinds, who are scared to even go to church or the grocery store. And so I invite you, even though you're on mute, to join me in reading the bolded words on the screen as we read our opening prayer together. Let us pray. Creator God, your loving care is a home for all.
No one is a stranger to you. With your generous blessings, watch over migrants and all who leave their homes to escape oppression, poverty, persecution, trauma, and violence. Help us to also be sources of blessings through our acceptance and valuing who they are as persons eager for wholeness of life.
Creator God, you taught us to welcome all.
Help us to remember that the land we call ours is a gift to be cared for and a gift to be shared with all who come. May we be open to all those searching for a safe and peaceful life.
Help us to pour out your love and compassion to all of our brothers and sisters.
Creator, help us to respect and revere the unknown between and among us. May we grow into new discoveries and accept new ways of learning about our common needs and desires. May respect and reverence break down our fear, anxiety, suspicion, racism, hate, and closed heartedness towards others. Creator, we build barriers in our hearts and make judgments that keep us from seeing others for who they are, the potential they have, and the talents that they have been given. You taught us to give witness to your love for all people. May we be accepting of those who want to be our neighbors. May we rejoice with their talents and accept new life perspectives from them.
Help us to pour out your love and compassion to all of our brothers and sisters.
Creator God, you who are present in all humankind, guide us to be mindful of your presence and help us to act in ways pleasing to you towards all those who search for a better life. May we reach out to migrants in need of help and acceptance and stand by them as brothers and sisters in Christ. We ask this through Jesus, the Christ, who was a migrant. Amen.
Amen. Well, welcome again, everyone. I'm so just thrilled that you all are here today to talk with us about this really important topic. I hope this program can be a resource to you and your communities. Just to start out with sort of a summary of what this program is, and then we'll dive into some of the details. Really, the goal of Faith and Immigration Justice is to guide you and your group in facilitating a healthy and holy dialogue around immigration. And I say we use the words holy and healthy for a reason, and I'll just share a quick personal story, sort of about the birth of this iteration of the program. And in 2016, I'm a United Methodist myself, and I was serving as a pastor of a small quote unquote purple church of more conservative folks. There were, a couple of, we were people across the political spectrum who were in a church where the demographics were changing. We were surrounded by immigrants. Our immigrants were our neighbors on all sides, and so I was appointed to the congregation in large part to help the congregation to reach out to our immigrant neighbors. And there was actually quite a bit of resistance in the church, and so we wanted to have a conversation about immigration, but we did not know how to do this without further causing division within our community itself. And so I learned a lot of lessons during this time. And at the same time, because our denomination had so few Spanish speakers, I was serving a lot of roles. So I was also working as the coordinator for Hispanic Latino ministry and helping other churches in our area as well to navigate some very similar congregations, some very similar conversations. And so a lot of these tools come out of, my own experience having served in more purple and conservative areas, and like learning how we can have productive, holy, and healthy dialogues around this rather contentious topic that is so important to our faith. And so we would just really hope that this program can be a tool that you can use to facilitate the conversation in a way that, rather than leading to division, really increases trust and understanding, even if your church is more divided on this topic right now. That said, another important point to add is we wanted to make this really accessible to everyone. You do not need to have a background on this topic. You do not need to know about immigration policy before diving into this. You also do not need to be clergy. You don't need to have prior experience facilitating groups. We provide everything that you need to facilitate this conversation in your community. We have facilitator training. The materials tell you exactly what to say and when to say it. Everything, we have given you everything that you need to bring this conversation to your church or community. So that said, we'll dive into some of the program goals, which can tell you, we'll tell you a little bit about where the program is headed and what you can expect to see if you think this is the right fit for your group. Goal one is really to discern how our common faith, calls us to respond to the immigration debate happening in our nation and to explore reasons why people choose to come to the United States. We are rooted in our common theology and our common principles as Christians, and we have found that starting from this place of commonality from Scripture and from our Christian tradition can be a great place to start, especially if you are in a more divided church or parish. Session 2 is really to get into some of the basics about immigration policies, because there are so many myths and misunderstandings that are floating around out there. So participants will learn to answer questions, including why do people choose to come to the United States? And why don't undocumented immigrants just get in line for citizenship and go about it the legal way? There's lots of misunderstandings about that. And so we've intentionally included resources that will give some factual information to, and one of my favorite ones, there's actually a couple of simulations that will guide people in exploring this from maybe a different perspective than they would have encountered otherwise. So this, I think, can really help us to have a true dialogue about this issue rather than debate or even arguing. Thirdly is to equip your group to advocate for just, compassionate, and effective immigration policies, and to welcome immigrant neighbors within your own local communities. So if you are in a church that, like mine, is experiencing some changes in your surrounding demographics, or if you have immigrants in your communities, this can be a great starting place to prepare you and your community to be able to reach out and get to know your immigrant neighbors in a way that is respectful and informed, and from a posture of humility and respect. At the same time, even if you don't live in an area that has many immigrants in it, this program will also give you tools for engaging in advocacy and action as well. And then last, but certainly not least, perhaps the most important of the goals that crosses all of our programs, is to transform a collection of individuals into a real community of love and support. We have found that after engaging in a Just Faith program together, many of our program graduates who have gone through the program together will remain together as a community and continue to support one another in engaging in action and just growing spiritually and sustaining that relationship for years and even decades after their program experience is over. And so I think this is something that you can expect from your group as well. Something to really note about the focus of this program is that the program focuses primarily on immigrants who are crossing our southern border, although the program also certainly touches on global migration as well. But really, it primarily uses the scenario of immigrants coming to the United States from Latin American countries as the primary sort of case study. And we believe that understanding this particular slice of the issue will help your group to better understand migration as a whole, as well as motivate you to learn about and from immigrants from all countries and cultures. And the reasons are this: the number one, the scale of this issue is so enormous that we found it more effective to take a slice of this issue in order to really better understand the whole. And then secondly, like this particular piece of immigration policy, our southern border is something that's really on people's hearts and minds right now. So we felt it's, as the organizers say, it's can be strategic to follow the energy and the passion of the folks. So that's just a little bit about the focus. And now we're going to dive into some details here. So I'm just going to walk you through, if it's all right with you, I'm just going to walk you all through the outline of the program itself, sort of session by session. So session one begins, as we mentioned before, it begins with theology. It's our foundation and place of unity from which we can all begin together. And so in addition to introducing some basic theology and biblical teaching around migration, participants will also take some time to explore group guidelines that will help your group to hold space for holy dialogue around this important issue. This group dialogues are something that the group guidelines for holy conversation are something that you will refer back to again and again throughout this process. And I imagine that they're something that you can bring into your everyday relationships and into your church and parish relationships as well to help you to navigate the division that you might be experiencing. And so you'll have introductions to each other, to the group guidelines, and then to the theology of migration. And, within the theology, you'll look at some of the biblical teaching. You'll also zoom in on a very specific passage about migration. And then additionally, you'll be introduced to some of the denominational statements on migration that your specific denomination, what your specific denomination has to say about this topic. And interestingly, we are pretty much all across Christian denominations. We are all pretty much united in our views about migration and welcoming the stranger. So session two gets into some of the history of immigration to the United States. This is an interactive, it's a really engaging interactive activity that invites folks to explore the hopes and fears that underlie immigration policy throughout our United States history in order to understand the mistakes of our past so that we can avoid those, as well as create policies that are rooted in love and justice rather than fear and greed. And so and we'll actually engage in a little while. We'll engage like in a small snapshot of this activity just to kind of introduce you to a little segment of the program. So session two introduces the history. Session three is really an amazing simulation on current immigration policies and processes. It helps participants to answer the question of like, well, why can't immigrants just get in line for citizenship? And it really takes them through a simulation of the process of trying to get a visa, and walks you through, who's eligible, who's not, under what circumstances are you allowed to come to the United States legally. So this is it's a great simulation. It was actually put together by some collaborators at the Office of Social Justice at the Christian Reformed Church. And so we're really grateful to be able to use this simulation. Um, Session 4 explores the question of why people come to the United States in the first place, and you'll view a documentary about some of the big picture global factors that spur migration. And it specifically gets at some of the international economic policies and military interventions that have led to instability, unrest, and the need for people to flee their home countries for many reasons. Um, In session 5, you'll have an opportunity to invite a guest speaker, and Leela will share a little bit more about that here in a little bit. So you'll have an opportunity to hear from a guest speaker in the first part of that session. And then in the second part of the session, you'll continue to explore this topic, this question of why people migrate. You'll particularly look at some of the factors that push people out of their home countries and pull them to the United States in order to better understand some of the stories and reasons why people are coming here. Session 6 is an opportunity for your group to explore current issues in migration. There are so much is happening so quickly right now. The policies are constantly changing. At the same time, there might be particular areas of interest that your group has. And so session 6 actually allows your group to engage in sort of like mini guided research activities around the topics that you all choose to address. So for example, you might address like what is happening with TPS right now, or what is happening specifically at the border. So you can choose sort of a subtopic around migration and cover and address that as a group through a guided activity. Between session 6 and 7 is an immersion experience in which your group can connect with a local organization that is already integrated in the immigrant community in your area, or you can engage in immigration justice efforts. It is very likely, especially if you live anywhere near a city, that there are many organizations working on immigration issues right now and are engaged in it deeply integrated in immigrant communities. And so it's pretty easy to set up an immersion experience with them. Alternatively, there are lots of opportunities for advocacy, and so your group can, engage in one of these activities together. Session 7 is on advocacy and action, and this session will guide your group in engaging in advocacy around immigration policies that affect change in both our nation or even in our local communities. And it will provide you with tools to help you create and meet goals that are realistic for you and your community. And then last is session 8. It is an opportunity to discern individual action steps that you can take after the program is over, and you will engage in a discernment activity together as a group. So your group will select an action step that you will take together after the program's complete. So that is a little bit about the program itself. Throughout the program, there are books and other resources that you all will read between sessions. And so two of those key resources are the books, The Line Becomes a River and Welcoming the Stranger. The Line Becomes a River is a memoir about a third generation Mexican immigrant who is also a Border Patrol agent. And he does an amazing job of describing the reality on the border and the people that he meets there. It's a really compelling story. It's also very informative. So he does a really great job of intertwining his personal experience with some facts and policies about immigration. And then the second book is called Welcoming the Stranger. It's a thoughtful policy analysis that debunks myths and misconceptions around immigration. It shows the limitations of our current immigration system, and it makes suggestions about how Christians can think about this topic in light of their faith. And something that I want to also mention is that we are also right now updating the program. The program update should be done in about 4 to 6 weeks, and these books will stay the same. We think it's really important that people know about the system that was in place a few months ago in order to really understand the changes that have the changes that have happened over the last few months. And so we will be providing some updates, especially to the sessions two and three, about some of the recent history that has happened over the past few months, and also the changes in immigration policy that have where doors have been closed to immigrants in light of the new policies that have happened.
Great. Thank you, Kristen. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk through what to expect and just a few more details about kind of the nuts and bolts of doing this program in your community. And then we'll get back to that activity that Kristen referenced a moment ago. So what to expect? The sessions that you will engage with, those 8 sessions plus the immersion experience, are 2 hours in length. Most groups meet weekly, so they meet weekly over the course of 8 or 9 weeks to journey through the program together. Some groups do choose to meet bi-weekly, and that seems to work just fine. We find that if you space out the gatherings a little bit more than that, sometimes you lose a sense of connection and engagement because you're having to sort of rebuild that trust week after week if you're meeting only monthly or something like that. So we recommend meeting weekly or biweekly. When you are organizing the group, as Kristen mentioned, you're going to have to think about the immersion experience and the guest speaker as kind of the added components to the program. So the materials you'll find will give you suggestions and ideas there. And I also just extend the invitation to reach out to us. We're always happy to help people brainstorm, find a good fit to make sure your group has everything they need to be successful in your local community. The program is designed to be done by small groups. So if you're meeting virtually, you can meet with, we recommend between 8 and 12 individuals. And if you're meeting in person, we find that the groups can be a tad larger and it's somewhere between 8 and 14 individuals. The program can be done virtually or in person. So you can meet on Zoom with folks from all over, or you can meet in person and in the same room together. When you register for the program, you get access to both versions of the material and can decide what format makes the most sense given your target audience. Between those weekly gatherings, there are weekly assignments, and those are going to be readings from the books that Kristen just mentioned. They're also going to include sometimes activities or extra videos to watch, and then spiritual practice to engage with. So you're able to spend time learning and thinking throughout the week, and then you come together to share, to consider, and to learn from one another. The beauty of our I think of one of the beautiful things of our program is the time spent in dialogue and the new ideas that come to light and the transformation that's possible in conversation with one another. Every session is going to look a little bit different, but you can generally expect this flow. You can expect to begin and end with prayer, to have time for conversation around an activity or a video, and then time to share and discuss what you learned from your weekly assignments. So again, each session will take on its own personality, but you can expect that general flow when you enter into a session. At the end of each of the sessions, you will spend a little bit of time in discernment. So, thinking about what you've learned that session and if there's any action items that you want to take action on in the coming week or month based on what you've learned that week. And so that time of discernment builds each week until that final session where you're really working together to decide, okay, where are we going from here? What are we going to do? How are we going to take action together? So that, Kristen, I'll toss it back to you to introduce this activity for folks.
Great. In describe sometimes we find it really difficult to describe exactly what our programs are, especially for folks who have never participated in a Just Faith Ministries program before, just because they're really unlike anything else that churches usually have to offer. And so we're trying to provide a very small glimpse into the program. And especially for this program, it was a little difficult to choose an activity that really encapsulates what the program is, but we're at least going to try. So we're now going to engage in an excerpt from the exercise that I mentioned earlier that is in session two of this program. It was originally put together by the Office of Social Justice of the Christian Reformed Church. And one thing that is important for creating effective and compassionate immigration policy is having a common memory of the past. And in the United States, really because of the diversity that we enjoy and benefit from here, it can be a challenge to really cultivate a common memory about immigration and our history. And so the purpose of this exercise is to really work toward a shared understanding of immigration history and the values that have shaped our evolving laws. And so we'll take into account memories that different groups may have, and together we'll form a more holistic and combined understanding through the simulation as a whole. And we're just taking little excerpts from the simulation itself. And when you engage in it as a whole, you'll be able to really see the patterns that have happened time and time again throughout our immigration history. And so we often hear the statement, my grandparents came here legally, so other people should too. And so this activity will help to explain how immigration policy has changed over the years and how it hasn't changed, and how it has prioritized some immigration seekers, as we're seeing now, over others. And this has happened for hundreds of years. In the actual activity, you'll look at several moments in our immigration history throughout a given era so that you can really see patterns in our thinking that led to certain policy decisions being made. And again, today we're just going to look at two specific moments. So you won't really get to see those patterns that you'll see in the actual simulation, but I hope that this will still give you some insight into what this exercise is like and how it may benefit your group, and maybe it will even help you to think differently and give you new insights into what we're seeing right now. So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to read this. This would be a timeline card that your group would receive. And so I'm going to read this out loud, and then we're going to dig into a couple of questions. And so excuse me while I get really close to the screen so I can read this. It says, hang on a second, let me zoom in. All right, so 1914 and 1918, during World War I, Germans and other recent immigrants from Eastern Europe became the targets of anti-immigrant suspicion. This fear spilled over onto others, socialists, anarchists, African Americans, labor unions, and other immigrants as well. Dutch Reform communities even experienced discrimination for being mistaken for Germans. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to invite you to consider this is the question we're going to consider first. What hopes of the American people may have led to this policy? What are the hopes of the American people that may have led to this policy? So for this first one, I'll give you an example. I'm seeing a hope might have been for a hope for safety, might have led to this policy. So I'll invite you to think about that. And then when you're ready, you can type into the chat your answer about what hope may have led to this policy. Oh, and by the policy is the one that I read out loud here. During World War I, Germans and other recent immigrants became the targets of anti-immigration suspicion. And so I guess what the policies that really the policies that would have discriminated against Eastern Europeans who became the targets of anti-immigration suspicion. Yeah. Controlling the unknown, anger of the world in Europe. Yeah, so maybe some hope for peace, hope for some control over the unknown. Yeah, hope for self-protection and purity, hope for economic improvement, hope for to decrease discord and division, hope for keeping safety and security. Yeah, exactly. And just something to consider quietly, and your group would have time to reflect on this a little bit. Are we seeing any of these same hopes today as we consider our own situation? All right, and so now we're going to turn to our second question. What fears of the American people may have led to these policies, these discriminatory policies? And so one example, my example would be fear of violence. Oh, I see. Yeah, fear of people we don't know, fear of the unknown and the other. Yeah, fear of those who are different, fear of the other, those who are different, fear of not achieving the hopes listed before exactly. Fear of that people might be displaced in society, fear of losing something, the fear of the unknown, fear of a shrinking pie. That's a good one. If there are more people sharing the American experience, that feeling that there's less for me somehow. Fear of the sharing of limited resources. Fear of expanding violence. Fear of change of their or slash our way of life. Fear of diluting quote unquote my values. Yeah, exactly. Fear of confronting people we were at we were just at war with. Yeah, and a question just to reflect on again is, are we seeing any of these same fears today? And again, you'd have some opportunities to share a little bit with your group about this. All right, let's go to the next example here. All right. So in this scenario, and this is in 1882, after a 30-year influx of Chinese immigration for work in gold mines and on the Transcontinental Railroad, Congress passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, which prohibited all Chinese immigration and denied citizenship for those already in the U.S. This was promised to be temporary, but it wasn't repealed until 1943. This was the first law passed by Congress to regulate immigration. The Chinese made up 0.002% of the US population at the time. All right, so let's take this event into account. And considering this event, what are the hopes of the American people that may have led to these policies around the Chinese Exclusion Act? What were some of the hopes of the American people that might have led to this policy, the Chinese Exclusion Act? And I invite you to type into the chat when you're ready what you think some of those hopes may have been. Yeah, the pie, yeah, the pie idea, yes, less for me, the purity of race. Yeah, nationalism. The, yeah, hope keeping the country white, quote unquote, hope for access to job. Um, oh, maybe some fear around interracial marriages, which were illegal. Keeping America for, quote, Americans. And so you can keep thinking about that. I'll also invite you to name some of the fears that American people were holding at this time that may have contributed to this policy. So what were some of the fears of the American people that may have contributed to the Chinese Exclusion Act? fear of loss of American culture and English language. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, same fears as we said before. Yeah, and at the same time, we had obliterated indigenous people. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Language likely had a big part of it. The fear of diversity, fear of job loss, fear of non-Christian religions, conspiracy. Yeah, and so you might be able to see how some of these policies relate to today. And again, in the actual simulation unfolds in a way in which, if you had folks who had different perspectives on the topic of immigration, the actual simulation unfolds in a way that is accessible to for them as well, and will lead to good conversation around this, and actually invites you folks to include their own stories, family stories of immigration as well. So even though this was a very limited peek at the simulation, I hope it kind of gave you a glimpse into what some of the program content might be like. So thank you so much for participating in this with us today.
Great. Thanks, Kristen, for leading us through that activity. I'm going to close with this prayer that's used in the program, and then we'll time for a Q&A. So feel free to keep sending those questions in the chat. If you'll pray with me. God of our wandering ancestors, long have we known that your heart is with the refugee, that you were born into a time and a family of refugees, fleeing violence in their homeland, who then gathered up their hungry children and fled into alien country. Their cry, your cry, resounds through the ages. Will you let me in? Give us hearts that break open when our brothers and sisters turn to us with the same cry. Then surely all these things will follow. Ears will no longer turn deaf to their voices. Eyes will see a moment for grace instead of threat. Tongues will not be silenced, but will instead advocate. And hands will reach out, working for peace in their homeland, working for justice in the lands where they seek safe haven. Lord, protect all refugees in their travels. May they find a friend in me, and so make me worthy of the refuge I found in you. Amen. Wanted to let y'all know about two upcoming events we have, just in case you are interested and want to learn more. Next Tuesday, a week from today, we have an information meeting on our racial justice series, which includes three programs: faith, racial healing, equity, and justice. You can click that QR code if you would like to join us next week. And then in June, we have a monthly webinar. And in those monthly webinars, we have a different presenter who highlights a different topic and shares with folks. This event's free of charge and open to anyone who wants to come and learn. So I invite you to join us next week as Bob Hunter speaks with us about history, the missing ingredient in challenging conversations. And I'm going to put in the chat here in a moment. Over the last few months, we've had Dr. Cecilia join us at our Acting for Justice webinars to share about what's going on in our country with regards to immigration and how we can respond. And then, so I'm going to put in the chat a link to those videos where you can both watch those recordings if this is a topic that interests you, share it with whoever you'd like. And then you'll notice some linked other link sites on the blog post. So it will include links where you can stay up to date on what's happening in the courts with regards to immigration today, and links to some other different advocacy groups that you can get involved with. So I'll put that here in the chat in a moment. But let's go ahead and move on to the Q&A. And Kristen, I'll toss you this question while I put that link in the chat. Someone asked about how to get folks involved in the small group beyond just your church community. So could you kind of explain how people can go about inviting folks to join their small group?
Absolutely. There's lots of ways that you can go about this. We have found you can partner with other churches in your area, for example. We've had churches, two different churches, for example, partner together to do this program together. So you could do it that way. You could extend personal invitations to folks that you may know who are outside of your specific community, and you can really rely on the contacts of people who may already be interested in joining your group. Another way that you could go about this is to plan to offer this program multiple times. So, for example, you could convene folks who are already in your church community to go through this program together, and then as an action step, those folks who have already been through the program could facilitate this program in other communities of which they're a part. So, for example, maybe a person in your group is part of a book club, and that person could bring this program to their book club and do it with a different group afterwards. So there's many ways that you could go about extending this outside the reach of your own congregation or community.
Great, thanks, Kristen. I will say a personal invitation is always the most effective strategy for getting people to say yes to joining a small group. So, extending that personal invitation, and then once you have people who've said yes, asking them to do the same so you can reach beyond your own personal network. Um, One thing that someone mentioned in the chat, Veronica mentioned that she's found, or they have found that mixed in-person and Zoom groups can be challenging, and I totally agree. So I just wanted to raise that up, that we recommend either a virtual group or an in-person group, that having hybrid groups where half of the group is in the room and half are on Zoom or another video conferencing platform is really challenging and makes for kind of a divided experience. So we recommend choosing one of the two formats for your group. Someone has also asked about kind of how do you have healthy dialogue about immigration? So I just want to speak for a minute about this, and Kristen touched on this a little bit earlier during her sharing, but this is no doubt a contentious topic. People are going to come to the table with differing opinions, and that is all right. We don't expect that everyone will leave any Just Faith program. Um, on the same page about every single thing that's discussed. Consensus isn't required for it to be a transformative experience. And so, what I think is a helpful framing to have in mind and to communicate to the participants in your group who sign up to be a part of the program experience is to remind them that the goal is to learn and to grow and to be transformed, to gain new insight and understanding. Again, not so that all 12 people who leave the program are exactly aligned at the end of the day and at the end of the program. So it's okay for there to be disagreement and difference. What is not acceptable is unhealthy or sort of unhelpful discussion. What we want is for people to listen to one another, to treat each other with care and respect, to treat the issues that you're talking about with care and respect. And so that community of trust guidelines that's reviewed in session one is a really essential foundation for good conversation throughout the program experience. Kristen, anything you'd want to add on that?
Um, I think that covers it, Leela.
Okay. Great. Any other questions? We have a lot going on in the chat, so I might be missing something. I see something here from Marianne. Will you cover the cost of the program, facilitation materials, videos, and resources? So there are two different registration options available to you. One option is where the participants pay to gain access to the program material themselves, and they pay on a sliding fee scale with partial and full scholarships readily available. Option number two is if you're part of a church or an organization that has a budget for a program like this, they can cover the cost for the participants in the small group. No matter which registration model you choose, every small group gets two free facilitator registrations as a way for us to say thank you for taking on the role of facilitating the small group. The books are an additional fee, and those can be ordered through Just Faith. Those help support our nonprofit ministry, but that's not required. So if folks want to share those books, if they already own them, want to get an ebook version, rent them from a library, all those are options, and people can figure out what's the best fit for them.
And we do, Lila, I don't know, I can't remember if you mentioned this, but we do have scholarships available. We don't want costs to be a barrier for anyone who participates. We are a nonprofit, and so we do rely on registration fees to some extent, but at the same time, we do have scholarships because this is an important topic, and we want you to be able to bring this to your communities.
Great. Thank you, Kristen, for emphasizing that. Any other questions? Um, yeah, someone has shared here says, personally, I find it challenging to turn the anger of injustice and discrimination into something more productive, like healthy dialogue, anyone health. Absolutely.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is an ongoing challenge, and it does require for I think just I'll speak for myself personally, and then Kristen, I'd love for you to respond if you want to. It requires some self-awareness and grounding before I enter into small group conversations that I can't come in um, entirely fueled by my emotions, that I have to sort of allow my spirit to settle and to ground myself in that moment to be present and in conversation. Because if I'm not grounded, then usually I'm not able to be a good conversation partner. So I I totally understand. Kristen, any response to that?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Veronica. I do find that our programs at least this has been true for me, and I hope this is true for others as well. They're like really a spiritual practice of navigating. This is something that we are all facing right now. How can we not be angry? How can we not be angry at the injustices that we're seeing? If we're not angry, there's probably bigger issues going on. We're also anger is natural and normal, and so this program I hope will be a spiritual practice that can really guide you through reckoning with some of that anger and turning it into action and love and compassion. And I know this could be particularly hard, especially for folks who are experiencing the effects of injustice, especially for those who are immigrants who know and love immigrants. And this can be difficult, and it will be important to set some boundaries to ensure that you have people to talk to. You turn to people in the group and be real with them. At the same time, if we would definitely encourage you to have folks outside the group as well that you can talk to and share with, whether it's your pastor or a therapist. But um, yeah, it can be really difficult to navigate the injustice that we are experiencing. But we hope that your group can be a space of community and trust where you can do that together in the context of community.
Mm, thank you, Kristen. Someone's asked again about the pricing model, so I went ahead and broke it down in detail in the chat. I'm also happy to answer follow-up questions on that, but I thought I'd just put that info in the chat so people can read it in detail. In just a moment, I'm going to adjust the settings. I'll stop the recording and adjust the settings so that folks can unmute and hang out. Kristen and I will stay on for a little while if people want to have a more informal back and forth. We'll sort of end the formal meeting and then stay around and connect. But before I do that, I just want to let you all know that we are here to support you. And so if you leave this call and you want to have a follow-up call to discern if this program's a good fit for your community, or if you have additional questions, I'll be sending a follow-up email so you can reply to that email, set up a time to meet with me using my Calendly link that'll be in the email, or just give me a call. I'm always happy to help and then can connect you with Kristen as needed or as appropriate. Um, can we send the slides? I think we can do that. Yeah, I don't think that would be an issue. So I'll discuss that with Kristen, and then we'll plan to include the slides in that follow-up email. Before I stop the recording, I see one final question, then Kristen, I'll see if you have any final remarks before we pause the recording. Mary's asked, when do these programs start? You can start the program whenever you want. It's available, so you can get it and get going whenever you would like. So I recommend thinking about a start date that would work for your target audience, and then setting that start date and getting busy promoting. Usually people want, a month to 2 months heads up so that they can get it on their calendar. So it can be helpful to register, get the start date set, and then promote from there. And Kristen, I'll toss you this last question I'm saying, will updates on federal policies be provided as things roll out? Could you speak to how that's going to be handled on an ongoing basis?
Yes and no. So we are working on updating the program right now to reflect the changes that have happened in light of this new administration. At the same time, while we will continually update the program, there will likely be immigration policy and changes in policy that will happen while your group is in progress, and so you won't necessarily receive the updates in the program as your group is in process. That said, session 6 allows time for your group to discuss the latest policies that have been rolled out. I mentioned that there's an opportunity for like a guided mini research project around, and so you can choose to address some of the latest policies that are happening. So yes, we will keep them. We keep the program updated, but we cannot unfortunately update it every time that there is a policy change. But there is space in the program for you all to address these federal policies yourselves.
Great. Thank you, Kristen. Okay, well, I will pause that recording. And if you'd like, feel free to hang out, say hi, and share with us what you're thinking. It's been good to spend the last hour with you all. Thank you for your interest in this topic and for coming to connect with us today.